You have changed your address. You have changed your job. You have changed your relationships, your circle, your routine, and still, the same problems follow you. The same arguments, the same disappointments, the same quiet suffering. And somewhere, in the back of your mind, you know. You already know. The problem is not the place. The problem is not the people. The problem is something you have not yet been willing to face. That is the truth no one around you will say out loud. Because it is uncomfortable. Because it requires something far harder than buying a new life. It requires building a new self. Most people will never do this, not because they are incapable, but because the outside world is easier to blame. It is easier to say the city broke you. It is easier to say the wrong people destroyed you. It is easier to say the timing was wrong. The opportunity was stolen. The world was unfair. And perhaps some of that is true. Perhaps life did deal you difficult cards. But here is the part you are avoiding. You are still playing the same game, with the same mindset, and expecting a different result. That is not bad luck. That is a pattern. And patterns do not live outside of you, they live inside of you. Think about the person you were 3 years ago. Think about their fears, their habits, their emotional reactions. Their beliefs about what they deserved, what was possible, what love was supposed to feel like. Now look at where you are today. How much of what surrounds you was quietly built by that version of you? How many of your current circumstances are simply the external reflection of an internal world that was never truly examined? This is the reality that transformation demands you accept. Your outer life is not happening to you. It is happening through you, through your choices, through your patterns, through the unresolved emotions you carry into every new beginning, through the beliefs you inherited and never questioned, through the wounds you buried instead of healing. The outside world is simply a mirror, and if you do not like what you see, you do not fix the mirror, you change what is standing in front of it. But most people do the opposite. They spend their entire lives rearranging the external. They chase money believing it will silence the emptiness. They seek status believing it will replace the confidence they never built. They move toward attention, toward validation, toward noise, because silence forces them to sit with themselves. And sitting with yourself is the one thing modern culture has trained you to avoid. Notifications, stimulation, distraction, all of it carefully designed so that you never have to stop and truly look inward. And so people go from motivation to motivation. They listen to speeches. They write goals. They start fresh on Monday. They feel a surge of energy for days, sometimes weeks. But then the feeling fades. Because feeling motivated is not the same as being transformed. Motivation is a spark. Transformation is the slow, painful, private reconstruction of who you are at your core. And one cannot replace the other, no matter how many times you try. Here is what is actually happening beneath the surface of a life that refuses to change. There are unresolved emotional patterns quietly operating below your awareness. There are old wounds still bleeding through your decisions. There are beliefs about yourself, formed in childhood, formed in pain, formed in moments you can barely remember, that are still running your behavior today, silently. Automatically, like code written long ago that no one ever chose to rewrite. You attract what you believe you deserve, not consciously, but in the deepest part of your nervous system, the part that learned what safety felt like, what love was supposed to cost, what you were worth, based on the responses of people who may not have known your worth themselves. That part of you makes decisions. It chooses partners. It sabotages opportunities. It retreats when things become real. It creates chaos when peace feels unfamiliar. And until you become aware of it, it runs your entire life. This is why self-awareness is not a luxury. It is the foundation. Without it, you are living unconsciously, reacting instead of choosing, repeating instead of evolving. The person who lacks self-awareness does not understand why they keep ending up in the same situations. They see the outcome but cannot trace the origin. They feel the pain but cannot identify the pattern. They want change desperately, but keep unknowingly recreating what is familiar. Self-awareness is the moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking what inside of me keeps creating this. That shift is the beginning of everything. And once that shift happens, the real work begins. Not the comfortable work, not the performative work of posting about growth while avoiding growth. The real work. The kind that happens in silence. The kind that no one applauds. The kind that requires you to sit alone with your own mind and not run from what you find there. Inner work is not gentle. It asks you to look at the parts of yourself you have spent years hiding, the insecurities you covered with arrogance, the fear you disguised as indifference, the longing for love you buried under self-sufficiency, the grief you converted into anger because anger felt stronger. Inner work says, look at this, not to punish yourself, not to perform suffering, but to understand. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. Discipline is a part of this, but not the version of discipline that culture sells. The aggressive, punishing, shame-driven kind that burns bright and collapses quickly. Real discipline is quieter than that. It is the daily, unglamorous decision to do what is necessary, even when it is uncomfortable, even when no one is watching, even when the emotional part of you would rather retreat. Real discipline is emotional maturity. It is the ability to feel the resistance and act anyway, to feel the fear and move anyway, to feel the pull toward old patterns and choose differently anyway. This kind of discipline is built slowly, through small decisions that seem meaningless in isolation, but are, in truth, the architecture of a new identity. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, every time you face a difficult emotion instead of numbing it, every time you hold a boundary that your old self would have abandoned, every time you rest instead of escape, every time you speak to yourself with clarity rather than cruelty. These are not small moments. These are the moments that build a different human being. Because here's the psychological truth about identity and destiny. Your thoughts do not stay inside your head. They become words. Words become decisions. Decisions become behaviors. Behaviors, repeated over time, become habits. Habits crystallize into identity. And your identity creates your world. This is not metaphor. This is mechanism. The version of you that believes they are unworthy will make 10,000 small decisions daily that confirm that belief. They will undercharge. They will over-explain. They will tolerate what they should not tolerate. They will shrink in rooms where they should stand tall. And their outer life will reflect all of it. Not because the universe is punishing them, but because behavior follows belief. Always. This person walks into the same world. The same imperfect world. The same difficult people. The same economic uncertainty. The same unpredictable life. And somehow, they build something different. Not because the world changed for them, but because they changed. And a changed person navigates differently, chooses differently, attracts differently, creates differently. This is the part of self-improvement that is rarely spoken about honestly. Real transformation does not happen in a highlight reel. It does not happen in a single breakthrough moment. It happens in the accumulation of quiet, private, often invisible inner shifts. It happens the night you choose to sit with your anxiety instead of drinking it away. It happens in the therapy session that breaks you open in a way you did not expect. It happens in the journal entry, where you finally admit the truth you have been afraid to write. It happens in the conversation with yourself at 3 in the morning when you acknowledge, without performance, without audience, that something in you needs to change. And in those moments, something does shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but fundamentally. A new layer of honesty is laid. A new level of self-respect is earned. A new boundary is drawn, not with words to someone else, but within yourself. And this internal shift eventually, inevitably, becomes visible in the external world. Because it must. The outer world cannot remain the same when the inner world has genuinely transformed. Mental clarity is another dimension of this that most people underestimate. A cluttered, unexamined mind makes poor decisions. Not because the person is unintelligent, but because the noise of unprocessed emotion, unresolved conflict, and unconscious fear interferes with every assessment. When you do not know why you are afraid, you make fear-based choices and call them logic. When you do not understand your emotional triggers, you react to old wounds in new situations. When your mind is full of mental chatter you have never quieted, you cannot think clearly enough to build anything lasting. Meditation, reflection, stillness, journaling. These are not soft practices for the weak. These are precision tools for the serious. The person who learns to sit with their own mind, to observe their thoughts without becoming them, to regulate their emotional state without suppressing it, that person has a profound advantage in every area of life. Because they are not constantly at war with themselves. They are not wasting energy on internal chaos that most people carry invisibly, but constantly. Emotional intelligence is not about being sensitive. It is about being strategic with your inner world. It is about knowing what you are feeling, why you are feeling it, and how to navigate that feeling without allowing it to destroy your judgment. This is a skill, a learnable, developable, deeply practical skill. And it changes everything. It changes how you lead, how you love, how you negotiate, how you handle loss, how you respond to criticism, how you maintain your direction when the people around you are losing theirs. And healing. This is the word people most often skip, because healing implies there is something broken, and admitting brokenness feels like weakness. But here is what the avoidance of healing actually costs you. Every wound you refuse to heal becomes a lens through which you see the world, a lens that distorts. A lens that creates threat where there is none, confirms abandonment where there is simply distance, reads rejection into indifference. Unhealed wounds do not stay quiet. They speak through your reactions. They speak through your patterns. They speak through the choices you make when you are tired and unguarded and operating on instinct. Your outer life will change. Not because the world became kinder. Not because luck finally arrived. But because you became someone different. Someone who does not need the world to change first. Someone whose inner world is strong enough to create a new outer world from the inside out. That is the truth. That has always been the truth. Real change does not begin outside. It never did. It begins in the silence between your thoughts. It begins in the choice you make when no one is watching. It begins in the moment you stop blaming and start building. It begins in the deep, private, courageous act of doing the inner work. And when you do it, truly do it, the life waiting for you on the other side is not something you will chase. It will simply become you. If this reached something inside of you today, leave a comment below. I change from within. Let that be your declaration. Not to anyone else, to yourself.